Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play this game here by Uwe Rosenberg. It's called Atiwa, and it's a game about bats, fruit, and people, and mostly just about that. And obviously in the country of Ghana. Now, in this game, each player is going to get 3 actions per round. Okay, so each round they're going to have 3 actions that they can take, taking 1 action at a time. Now, up here we have on this board here, we have this symbol here that says round 1 here. So when you're done with round 1, there's 2 things that are going to happen. 2 potential things. First of all, you're going to have your action phase. Then you're going to have an optional bat action phase. And then it'll be the next player's turn. Okay? And then you'll do that 3 times. Then after everyone has gone 3 times, a maintenance phase will begin. A variety of things, 7 steps in fact, 7 steps make up the maintenance phase. And then during that phase, during the last phase, this will slide down, revealing that we are now in round 2. So this not only will change up actions that we can take, because this is sort of like a worker placement game, not only is it going to change the actions that we may take during each round as we slide these action tiles down, but it's also going to help us keep track of how many rounds there are in the game, which is a total of 7 rounds. Now, when the 7th round is over, it doesn't end the game, because you see the maintenance phase of the game has to take place even after the 7th round. There's a maintenance phase, and during the maintenance phase, several things will happen before the end of the game. But yeah, that's how you keep track of how many rounds are in the game. 7 rounds in total, 3 actions per round per player. That's basically the flow of the game, okay? Now, I did say there's a second type of action you can take, and that's called the bat action phase, which is an optional phase. So it's not a have to phase, and it's something you can do only if you meet certain requirements, which we'll go over later. But on your turn, you can take a number of different actions. Each one of these locations can only have 1 worker on them, though. So you'll be taking your action at a spot, and another player, well, they can obviously can't go to a spot that you went to, okay? So you'll be blocking them from going to certain places, that kind of thing. Now, each round, there could potentially be a changing of first player. You see, in this game, whoever has the first player token will have this token here. And these actions over here will actually cause this to go to another player. So that way in round 2, round 3, so on and so on, another player could go first instead. So the person who goes first isn't going to always have the advantage of having all of the actions to himself to choose the best action possible, because this is going to change hands quite a bit. Okay, so let me explain how all of the actions work first, okay? So let's explain these, because we've already started talking about them. In this game, you want to get a lot of victory points, and one of the ways you could score victory points is by collecting these cards, these like town cards here, and they can give you a ton of points, okay? There's also cards up there, but we'll go over them later. So if I was to go here, I could pay a gold and 1 tree, meaning I'd have to have a tree on one of my cards. There's a tree, for instance, right there on the supply. Sorry. So I could have a tree. I could pay a tree from my play area, from my town, if you will, plus a gold. And then I could take this farmstead location and add it to my player area over here. Okay? I could do that. And then if another player had this, I could take it from them and it would be mine. Okay? But if somebody else went here, because, if I went here, for instance, then another player could go here, for instance, do this, pay 2 gold and 1 tree, and take one of these, and then take this from me. That could potentially happen. So this could change from player to player multiple times in the course of just 1 round. The first player token could definitely move around a lot. But then that pretty much explains how you're going to get these cards. You're going to need to have trees, hence trees. Now, this is just an icon, so you're going to have to place a tree at that location, but then the tree will be paid from your play area, from here basically, to pay for this stuff. Obviously, you're going to need to have gold, and we'll explain how you get gold later. But you're going to need gold, you're going to need trees to get these town cards, or village, or settlement, or farmstead. So if you want the settlement, which is going to have more places to put your villagers, then it's going to get more expensive. So same thing with this. So it's going to cost a lot more money, but you're getting more places to put villagers. And that's one of the main ways you're going to score points in this game, is having places to put villagers out. You're going to need that. So you're going to need as many of these as you can get. Now, this is basically how you get these cards, for instance. But there's also terrain cards. So let's see if we can zoom in on that and explain that further. And there we go. Now it should be close enough so you guys can see it that well. So these up here are the terrain cards, okay? And they don't cost anything to get. You don't need money to get them. And you even get a bonus for taking them. You can take one up, I have it set up for basically a 2-player and solo game. So there might be a 4th card out, but right now there's only 3 cards out, 3 terrain cards out. But if I was to take this terrain card here by placing my worker here, I would get 1 wild animal, and I'd get this card here, which is a rainforest, which will give me a point at the end of the game, give me a lot of places to put trees and wild animals, okay? You'll notice there's a blank space here. This blank space means I can put either a tree or a wild animal in that blank space, as long as I have a wild animal already placed here, or as long as I have a tree already placed at one of these tree locations, then I can place an additional one here. But it's up to you, but that's it. So if I wanted to play, I would never be able to place like bats here, for instance, or goats for that matter, because they're not on the card anyway. But yes, I could take this, and it's worth an extra point at the end of the game. Not very many points, for sure, okay? Not very many points, but that's one of the things that I could do. If I was to go here, I could take whatever card was here, plus I'd get a bat. It just happens to be a cave, which basically means only bats can go there. Here, I could take this card, and if I took this card here, by placing a worker at this location, I could also get a fruit tree, meaning the tree that I have to take, and I'm taking, I could place a fruit right onto that tree. I have to, actually. If I take the fruit, it has to go on the tree that I just placed, if I decide to do that. Now, here's the thing. When you take an action, taking an action is mandatory. Placing out your meeple, that's mandatory. What you decide to take is not mandatory. So if you choose to only take this face-up terrain card, but you don't want the tree and the fruit, you do not have to take them. But you can't simply take the fruit. If you're going to take the fruit, it has to go on the tree that you're taking. So you wouldn't have that as an option. You would have to take the fruit as it is with the tree actually underneath that fruit token, obviously. So that's how you're going to get those face-up ones. And at the end of the round, they get refreshed, basically, and you'll have new ones. Or you can just take a random card from the top, not knowing what it is. So if you place a worker here, you can get yourself a tree, and you can also get one of these face-up ones. Whatever it may be is yours, okay? It's a blind draw. Okay, so that's 8 of the actions that you can take so far. Okay, so then we have some more actions here. So during round 1, if you place a worker here, you can get a village, okay? And we'll explain where these things are coming from and all that jazz and where we're putting them and stuff later. But you can get one of these tokens from your supply board, okay? And place it into your town, into a place that you have room for a family, okay? into an unoccupied house, basically, you could put this family token, okay? But then you also may train a family as well. So I could take this exact token if I wanted to and train them. So that way they no longer eat bats. And, you know, they can now share space with a bat. So if you train a family, not only does it has a lot of benefits for training families, and one of the benefits is it gives you another place to put a bat. You're allowed to put one bat on a spot with a trained family, but you can't put a bat with an untrained family. Now, of course, you do not have to train the family that you just got. If you got a family earlier, or if you have another family from earlier, because you start with one family at the beginning of the game, you can train that family instead. So it's just an option. You can literally train the family that you just got. So that's something you can do. So that's one of the actions. Okay. If you were to go to this one, to this action here, you would get not only just a goat, but you'd also get a wild animal and a bat. Pretty cool, right? If you go here, you could get 2 trees and a gold. We talked about needing a lot of gold to purchase the settlements and the towns and the villages and the farmsteads and all that jazz. To purchase these, because that's one of the currency you need, besides trees, you need gold. So that might be nice, getting 2 trees and a gold, because, you know, you need trees too to purchase more town cards. So you could put a worker there. If you put your worker here, you could, this icon obviously means you could train a family you already have. You could do that. And then you could get your choice of 2 bats, or you could either get 2 bats or you could get a wild animal, your choice. If you went here, you could get a wild animal and 2 trees. If you go here, you can put a bat into a house. Now, that house can either be an unoccupied house, meaning there's no villagers there, or that house can have a family that's already been trained that doesn't already have a bat in that house. That means that's where you can put the bat. You can put a bat there in a house, okay? Cool. That means if you take these bats over here, you can still place them in houses, as in trained villagers or houses without people at all, okay? But this is just meaning if you go here, you have to have a place to put that bat, okay? But then it also allows you to train a family as well here at this moment as well. So it gives you something else to do. So you might be able to still do that action anyway. And then here, if you went here, you could get a bat and 2 gold, okay? So those are the main actions. There's 2 more actions to talk about. But before we do that, every round, this changes. So during round 2, instead of being able to do these 2 things, it's going to be a goat and training a family, or getting a family and then getting a bat and a wild animal. So these are going to change every round. They're going to be different. And we do have a handy player aid to help you remember certain things, which we'll go over later. But these round things also have something else. Not only is this here for the round, but you'll also, during the maintenance phase, there is going to be a step that a breeding occurs. So if during the first round, if you have 2 villagers, or should I say 2 families, if you have 2 families in your town, then you can get 1 family for free as basically part of the breeding phase. If you have 1 bat in your town, then you can get a bat during the breeding phase. You can only do this once per each of these, though. You can do all 3, but you can only do it once per each of these. And then if you have 1 wild animal, a breeding can occur, and you can get a wild animal as well. So every round, it's going to change. It's going to be a different equation. It's going to be a different number every round. And so we have a player aid that can help you prepare for each round ahead of time. You can look at your player board and be like, okay, I've got a lot of bats now. What round are we in? We are in round 1, and we've got 10 bats. So we've got to make sure we have more than 10 bats, obviously, for round 4. But maybe we're planning on getting more bats, and we're thinking that after round 4, that we can do a breeding if we still have more than 10. Well, that's not the case, because round 5, 6, and 7, you can no longer get free bats during a breeding, because there isn't any breeding for bats. So your focus might be getting bats during the first 4 rounds, but the last 3 rounds, your focus may not necessarily be on getting tons of bats, okay? But yes, that's a handy little guide. And we'll go over feeding and all that jazz later during the maintenance phase and all that. So yes, that's how that's going to work here, how the actions are going to work, and obviously what you can do during the breeding phase of the maintenance, during the breeding step of the maintenance phase. Now there are 2 other types of actions you can do if you're playing a 2-player game. Now it might be different if you're playing a 3 or 4-player game, but if you're playing a 2 or 3-player game, we've got these 2 locations here. Now you'll notice this icon here with a hand and a plant in it, okay, or a seedling. What does that icon mean? It means cards that you have that icon. Some cards that you get, some terrain cards that you get, will have that icon. The rainforest has it, the cave has it, and the bush have it, but not every terrain card will have it. So that's what that means, the amount of that icon you have. So if I had a rainforest, for instance, and I went here and put my meeple here, I'd get 1 gold for that rainforest. If I had other terrain cards that had that icon on it, then once again, I'd get gold for each one of them. So it's worth going to if you have a lot of those icons, because you're going to get a lot of gold. Now here, if I have at least 4 of these cards, either the terrain or the town cards, a combination of them, if I have at least 4, I can train one of my families per 4. So if I had 8, I could train 2 families. If I put my worker here, I could, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I could train the amount of families based on the amount of icons I had. So if I had the bush, the cave, and the rainforest in my town, I had all 3 of those cards, then I could train 3 families because I had 3 of those icons in my town. And then I would get 1 gold for every 4 of these cards I had in my town. Those are all of the worker placements. That's it. That's all of the worker placements. So let's talk about placing stuff now. So I'm going to have to fix the camera a bit. And move the table for this part of the explanation. Now that we've explained how actions are going to work, now we need to talk about how our supply is going to work, how placement is going to work in this game. Okay. So here's our supply board. This is the supply board. This is our play area. We start with, like I said, 1 villager, 1 family, in our town. Okay, that's what we're going to start with. And we're obviously going to be taking various actions and placing our stuff here, from here, okay? So, for instance, let's say I took that action earlier that let me place two of the wild animals. And let me get this guy because he fell off the board. So let's say I had taken that action. Let's say I had placed my worker at that location that gave me the 2 wild animals. Okay, so here's 2 wild animals. I get them from there. I could place them into my town. I could place 1 here. Now, you'll note there isn't another icon for the other wild animal. So if I was going to place both these wild animals, I would have to place the second one in the blank space, meaning no, I can't place anything there. Anything else there, okay? But yes, and unless it goes away for some other reason or another later on or something. But yes, that's how that's going to work. Now, if I ever take an action that allows me to take something from here to here, and I have no place for it, that means I don't get to take that action. I can take that action, but it means I don't get to place anything here. Just make a mental note. If you don't have a place to put this stuff from here to here, then obviously you can't take it. Okay, so that's how placement's going to work, at least in that regards. Like I said, bats can go into unoccupied homes. So I could place right now a bat here, and a bat here, and a bat here, because there's a bat icon on that one. And then these two are unoccupied houses, so the bats can go there, for instance. Now, if I ever get a villa, if I ever get another family, okay, and I decide to put the family, like, let's say here with this bat, because they are not a trained family, I then lose the bat. So I don't get to move the bat to another spot, I lose it. Okay? So make mental note of what you're doing with placement, okay? However, if I took an action, like for instance during the first round, if I took an action and the family that I put here is actually going to get trained on the same turn, then the bat gets to stay there, obviously, because it's a trained family moving in, basically. Not an untrained, but a trained family has moved in there. So the bat is lucky and gets to stay. Now, for instance, if later on, I train this family here, and then afterwards I get a bat, I can put a bat with this trained family too. So it just really increases where you get to put your bats. Because like I said, not everybody's going to get that card that has a bat location on every single space, okay? Every single, basically, part of the grid, right? Not everyone's going to get that. So you're going to want to have as many places you can place to, obviously, place bats, which means you're going to want to train as many of these families as you can. Now, when you take something from here, it's always going to start from left to right. You're never going to take anything from this side unless there's nothing else left in that particular row going this direction, okay? So that's placement rules for bats. Now, there are some cards that have certain icons, and I don't have any of those examples offhand, but there are some placement changes and rules if you get one of those cards. There's only a few of them. There's like 5 or 6 cards, that terrain cards you could potentially get that could change some placement rules and make some other exceptions to the rules. But other than that, that's basically the rules. So I could place a goat here, I can obviously place a tree here, and then whenever I acquire a fruit, I can put a fruit on a tree, unless a space says I can put a fruit. If there's a fruit icon on a space, then that means I can put a fruit there. But otherwise, fruit can only go on trees. They only grow on trees. No pun intended. But yes, that is the main placement rules for Atiwa. At least the main ones, anyway. Now, let's talk about the maintenance phase, because that is going to affect gameplay quite a bit, the maintenance phase. So, let's talk a bit about that. So, let's just say I had a goat, okay, and I had a wild animal, and we have a trained family here, and we have a bat with this trained family, for instance. And we have an untrained family here, and we have a bat in this house too. And ooh, let's get a tree, because this is a good explanation. So let's get a tree, and let's say we had, a fruit in that tree here, like so. And let's just, for the point of argument, let's just grab another terrain card for this example. So, like, for instance, maybe this here, for instance. Let's say I also had this as part of my equation here. Okay, so a lot of different things are going to happen during the maintenance phase. During step 1 of the maintenance phase is the income phase. Now, during the income phase, you're going to collect a certain amount of gold based on the amount of trained families you have. So for instance, I have 1 trained family. So therefore, during that first round, I get the 1 gold if this was sort of my equation here, okay? Not saying you'd probably have all of this, but yeah. Okay, let's just say that's the case. Now I'm going to get 1 gold. However, for every family that isn't trained, you're going to go through a bag. So now we're going to talk about the bag. In this bag are tokens, are pollution tokens, basically. And the pollution tokens are going to do some horrible things. So I have one untrained family. So I have to draw one from the bag, okay? So let's just draw one. This is a pollution token, okay? And as you can see, it has nothing on this side. But occasionally, when you do draw from the bag, you'll get something that has something on it. Well, it'll be gold. But see, I'm still drawing from the bag and no gold. Still no gold. Ooh, finally got a gold. So sometimes when you draw a pollution token from the bag, it will have a gold on it. That means you would get another gold, basically. So you can get gold from pollution tiles, some, but not a lot. Because, like I said, I went through a lot of these before I finally got one. But then, what you're going to do is you're going to have to place this pollution onto your play area. Now, this is very going to definitely make you think about where you place stuff for the future turns. Now, what you do is you always will start with the leftmost card. So now you can have multiple rows. So this could have been placed here, for instance. That would have been fine. But you're going to start with the leftmost top row. So if this was the equation, you would start with this card, and then if it was full of pollution tiles in a certain particular order, then you would go over here, okay? If there was one card here, you would go here, here, and then here, okay? Now first, what you do is you would place a pollution token in the middle spot of, obviously, this card here, because it's the leftmost. And then the next time you have to place a pollution, it has to go here, because this is also the next card up in line that has no pollution in this middle spot, which means that bat there would die. I would lose the bat from the pollution. So that's the cost of not training your families. If you don't train your families, then you have this happen and you start losing stuff. Bats might die, trees might die, families potentially could die, although most likely not anytime soon. But yes, that's the cost of pollution. So that's what would happen. So I'll do a demonstration. So let's just say I had to do a ton of pollution placing. So then the next one would go there, for instance. Then if there are no more cards that are during this round, if there are no more cards that don't have any pollution to place in the middle top part of the card, then what you'd do is you'd place it on the top right of each card, starting from left to right, so to speak. So then I'd have to do that. Then, once again, if I couldn't place any more pollution on the top rows at all, because obviously it'd be like this for all the cards, then the next one up would be here. I'd have to put a pollution tile token here, for instance. And then if I had to do it again, it would go here, killing that wild animal. And then if I still had to place again, it would go here. And then if I had to place it again, it would kill this goat, and it would go there, okay? You'll keep doing this, okay? Now, if you still have to keep placing, and you no longer have any more, all four of these corners of your cards, all your cards, all of them, are completely full of pollution, then the next one that would be on the chopping block would be this one, and then this one, and so on. Now, when you get more cards, you're going to be putting them in different positions, and so you might have tons of pollution tiles over here, but later on in the game, you might decide to put a card here, for instance. And then that means you'll have to fill up this to a certain extent, before you start messing around with these again. But yes, you should understand that pollution is bad, because you see, there is no way to get rid of this pollution. So once you have to place a pollution token out, there's no way to remove it in this game. Pollution is bad. That's the model of the game. Pollution is bad. And so it's also going to prevent you from placing stuff there. So not only does it kill something that potentially could be there, but it's going to prevent you from placing there too. So it's going to limit where you can place stuff. So that means you don't want a lot of untrained families, okay? But that's how the pollution phase is going to work. So let's just kind of fix things here now. Let's get rid of the pollution. Hold on. Because obviously you wouldn't have this equation in the beginning of the game, that's for sure, because you wouldn't have that many families in the beginning of the game. But let's just say we had the 1 right there, okay? And like I said, we had a trained family, we had an untrained family, which is why we got the pollution. We have a tree here, we've got some gold here, we've got a goat, wild animal here, we've got a bat here, for instance, and a bat here. That's good enough. Okay, so let's say that was the sort of the equation. That was just step 1 of 7 steps of the maintenance phase. Step 2. Step 2 is going to actually affect this supply board now. So, first of all, you're going to get to place out trees and fruit bats during phase 2, okay? During phase 2, you're going to get to place out, potentially place out trees and fruit and more fruit bats, okay? It's going to be equivalent to what's going on here. So let's say you had 3 of your wild animals placed in your area. So we have space for them too. So let's just say this was the equation. We had 3 of these wild animals placed. That means we get to place a tree now. Let's just say we already had 3 out, okay? So we would go up here, we'd look, and we would see that we get to place 1 tree. So we'll place that 1 tree out. So we'll place that tree here, for instance, okay? Now we look here, and it shows that we have 1 fruit. There's a fruit icon right there. So that means we get to place a fruit next. Ooh, so now we get to place a fruit on one of our trees. Ooh, there we go, like so. And then we see the fruit row here, and it shows us a bat icon right there. That means we get to place another bat into our area. So, I guess we would put it into this location here, this empty area for now, okay? That's what we do during the second phase of the game. That's what we're going to do. It's called the Wild Animals, Trees, and Fruit phase. Then there's a Fruit Bat phase. So let me get the Knight card. Okay, so this is not something you'll probably do in the first round. But remember when I told you about a optional bat action phase? Well, during the optional bat action phase, if I have 3 bats in my player area, which I do, and I have also 1 fruit, which I do, and I also have a place to put a tree, I can put, on my turn, I could obviously do this a maximum of 3 times per round, but I could put the 3 bats onto this Knight card here, okay? And then I could pay a fruit to place a tree. So I could pay one of these fruits to go back and then place a tree out. That's basically what it's letting you do. But during the third phase, if you have bats on this card here, then you're going to then take them off of this card and then replace them back into your play area. So they do not stay on this Knight card forever. They just stay there temporarily, okay? But of course, if you do that and you have no place to put all of your bats, that means you lose bats in the process. Some of your bats you may not regain in the process if that's the case. So make mental note of that when you're doing that. But that's what's going to happen during the third phase. So like I said, this third step of the phase may not happen every round for everybody, especially probably not in the first round. Okay, so that's what will happen for the third phase. Now the fourth phase is the feeding phase, and this is where things can get very bad. So you're going to want to feed your families now, okay? If your families go hungry and they don't get fed, you get 2 points, minus 2 points for every time that happens, okay? You're going to have a score pad, okay? Let me get the score pad. You're going to have a score pad here, and for every time a family is unfed, you're going to put a little line here to indicate that's, tally it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a little line between the 4. You know that, right? The slash. And then you're going to get -2 points for every one of those little lines. So you don't want to do that too often, for sure. But that's something that can happen. So what's going to happen is you'll notice we have a number here, the number 3 on the family location. And you'll notice we have a number 1 on the goat spot. What's going to happen is you're going to make it -1 of that 3. So what's 3 minus 1? Well, it's 2. That means that you need to now feed 2 food to your families, okay? So how do you feed what can you feed your families? Well, the best way you can feed your families is actually paying a wild animal from your play area. Now, whenever you feed your villagers, or your families, you have to pay from here, basically, okay? Or if you're using gold, you have to pay, obviously, your gold. But you have to pay from here. You're not paying up here. You're paying down here for it. You're paying here in this area. So, for instance, we have a feeding player aid, even to help us. So it tells us that wild animals are 2 food, in a sense. They make as much as 2 food. Goats, on the other hand, make as much as 3 food. Oranges, or fruit, I guess, count as 1 food. You can also pay gold, and that is also worth 1 food each. And if you have an untrained family, per untrained family, you can feed them bats as well for 1 food each. And then obviously, per missing food that you weren't able to pay, it's -2 points. So that's how that's going to work. So I could literally just pay this back to my supply board here, basically, right? To pay for those needy villagers. And then nothing else happens during that phase. Awesome. That's great. That's wonderful. That's what's going to happen during the feeding phase. Then there's the breeding phase, which is step 5, okay? During the breeding phase, it depends on the round. Now, we talked about this earlier. If you need to, you can go to the beginning of the video when I showed you all the different stuff for each round. But during the first round, if you have 2 families in your village, which I do here, I could get another family. I could do that now. I could get another family because a breeding has happened, basically. And so now there's another family here. That's something I could do. If I have 4 families, I could still only do it 1 time, okay? Now, if I have at least 1 bat, I can get another bat. Ooh, yay, I could get another bat. But unfortunately, I don't have any places to put bats right now, so I wouldn't get that free bat. But yes, I could get another bat if I had place for it. And then, if I had at least 1 wild animal, I could get another wild animal if I had a spot for it. Ooh, I've got a spot for it. I could take another wild animal and do that, for instance. Nice, look at that. So that's the breeding phase. That's how it's going to work. Now, it's going to be different every round. It's going to get more expensive. You're going to have more stuff. But that's how the breeding phase works. There's 2 more phases of the game. There's the worker phase. During the worker phase, you get all of your workers back. So all of the workers you have placed out, you get them back. That's simple enough. And the last phase, the final phase, is when you refresh the terrain cards and when you just simply move that action tile to the left, revealing the next round, whatever that round may be. And that's basically how you play the game. Now, obviously, how do you score points? We didn't really go over too much on scoring points. So let's go over that quickly. We have this handy little score pad to help us out here. For every gold you have at the end of the game, it's worth 1 point, 1 victory point. If you have a lot of those terrain cards, hence these, you can get victory points with these. So right here, this would be worth 10 points at the end of the game, those 2 cards. Then you can obviously get points based on your supply board up here. They can score you points based on what you have that you've played here. So right now I'd get 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 5 points, 1 point. That's how that would work. So I'd get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points, for instance, right there. For every trained family, you get a point. I've got 1 trained family, so I'd get a point for that. You get 1 point after 10 bats. So if I had 11 bats, I'd get 1 point. If I had 15 bats, I'd get 5 points. If I had 16 bats, I'd get 6 points, okay? So you can get some points if you have a lot of bats. But you have to have at least more than 10 to start scoring. And then you're gonna get -2 points for every family that went hungry during each of the rounds, obviously. And then you add up your points, and whoever had the most points wins. Okay, cool. But that's basically how you play Atiwa. I think that's everything you need to know in order to play the game. I hope my explanation helps you. I hope it does. If it doesn't, I tried my best. All right, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and please subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time. Goodbye.